So after a very acute and unfortunately short-lived pump in the markets, crypto right now is down, and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has hinted at rate cuts in September. This to me represents a pretty good time to start building or at least repairing a portfolio. And look, a crypto portfolio doesn't have to be $100,000, $50,000, $10,000. Most of us don't have that kind of dry powder lying around. Today, we're going to get really specific with the numbers. We're looking at a $1,895 portfolio that we're going to very accurately invest with. We're picking 5 altcoins for specific reasons, and I'm going to break down why these are worth considering and perhaps worth adding to your portfolio before the 17th of September in particular. Welcome to the channel. My name is Maddie, and this is Altcoin Buzz. Happy Monday, and all the best of luck if you choose to invest, whether that's into these projects, by the way, or other altcoins. Generally speaking, I wish you very well, but I'm not a financial or investment advisor. Just remember that, and also be reminded that this video is not official financial or investment advice. All right, so at number 1 on today's list here, we have to kick off with Ethereum. Ticker ETH, of course, ETH. It really is Ethereum season right now. And historically speaking, in all the preceding bull runs that we've seen, this is typically the last stop before the altcoins really start to pump themselves, at least the best, or the better, I should say, altcoins. Let's take a look at why we picked Ethereum, though, specifically. But besides just being a precursor to altcoin season, there are valid reasons to have Ethereum in your portfolio. First of all, Ethereum spot ETFs are killing it at the moment. For example, we see on the 12th of August alone, the ETH ETFs saw over $1 billion in inflows. That's in a single day, $1 billion in a single day. So far, that has been the largest daily inflow ever. And so right now, Wall Street and institutional investors are very much considering and involving themselves, more than considering, they're dabbling heavily with Ethereum. Ethereum is also about to outperform Bitcoin. That's not something that you can make up. This is empirical, objective data. We actually have some big names, so the likes of Standard Chartered, Forbes, and a few others as well that are noticing this, that are stating that publicly. And if you're not a fan of those names, you can consider Tom Lee. He is accumulating ETH actually faster than Michael Saylor ever did with Bitcoin. Tom Lee is the first one to hold more than 1 million ETH. Currently, whales are buying ETH like it's candy right now. New all-time highs for ETH are a matter of when, not if. So given that we have a portfolio size of $1,895, I am allocating 30% of that budget to ETH. That represents about $569 in this portfolio for Ether. At number 2 in our portfolio is Cardano, ticker ADA. This is our next pick in terms of altcoins, and ADA has seen some serious upticks recently. Let's consider why that happened. First of all, the Cardano network just approved a $71 million treasury funding for new development. This is very likely to improve things like scalability, interoperability, and enhanced developer tools. Cardano's TVL is also improving significantly. The Glacier airdrop for Midnight, of course, helped to increase on-chain activity. And then, of course, besides Cardano, holders of 7 other tokens in self-custody also qualify for this airdrop. We covered this one in detail. Check out this video if you haven't already. This is something that's going out to over 37 million different wallets with all kinds of different combinations and permutations that are possible. So if you're uncertain about your eligibility, check out this video guide. We put it together recently. So obviously, this airdrop will very likely contribute to an increase in new Cardano compatible wallet addresses. And then when it comes to the institutions, the smart money, whales are not sitting still when it comes to Cardano. In fact, recently they've been on a bit of a shopping spree. Altogether, they bought for over 200 million ADA in a window of 24 hours. Polymarket here is suggesting that the chances of a Cardano ETF approval are currently at 81% as I record. The Genius Act is also a factor here that was very favorable for Cardano especially and generated new stablecoin inflows. In terms of ADA price action, the token has seen some pretty explosive rises and upticks recently. It is 4 times up from the recent bear market price of 25 cents, and it's currently following more or less the same structure that we saw in 2021. And so if we extrapolate, this could very well lead to an explosive move by ADA. $1.50 is next, according to some analysts. And then, of course, after that, all-time highs are very possible as well. Again, our portfolio is only $1,895, but I'm allocating a quarter of that, 25% of the budget here, to Cardano and ADA. So that equates to $474. Next up, and at number 3, we have Ripple and the XRP token, which as a project has very much been in the spotlight now recently, but more than just recently, for several months now, I would argue. XRP saw a 465% increase over the last year, which happened for a lot of different reasons. First of all, there's the legal victory, which was massive, and the end of kind of the SEC uncertainty, all of that ambiguity that was hanging over Ripple as a project. And so here we are after 5 years at last with the SEC lawsuit that has come to an end. Both parties dismissed all of their appeals, and the case is now officially closed. And so obviously this opens the floodgates for renewed institutional interest. This removed the Damocles sword, which was proverbially hanging over Ripple's head. Both retail and institutional investors are looking at XRP with a lot of renewed interest, and you can't blame them. In fact, right after the settlement, we saw daily institutional trading volumes for XRP surge by 208%. It reached $12.4 billion. And so obviously that translates into the fact that big players see major upside and are getting serious once again when it comes to XRP. Wall Street is paying attention. We saw whales that recently bought 320 million XRP over a span of just 3 days or 72 hours. And a lot of people are saying that XRP's next move can very likely be to $3.60. And if you're a little bit more optimistic and you factor in some technical analysis going back to the outbreak that was observed in November 2024, there is a chance, according to some, that XRP could go all the way to $12.60. But even then, technical analysis aside, as good as that's looking, there's all kinds of positivity in terms of partnerships and expansion. For example, we have real estate tokenization projects that are happening in Dubai. Or as shown here, how about institutional custody in South Korea? Things are looking pretty good once again for Ripple and the XRP token. We're allocating 20% of our portfolio toward this project, or the equivalent of $379. At number 4 here, we are considering Stellar and its token XLM. This is our next pick for our portfolio of altcoins. And actually, like Cardano and Ripple, Stellar is an ISO 222 compliant project. We covered this recently. Check out this video put out not that long ago. That, as far as a characteristic in itself, might give these projects an edge. However, there's also some other stuff that makes us excited about Stellar. Stellar, as a project, is all about financial rails. It secured 1-year partnerships with some pretty big global payment giants, which gives a pretty nice boost to its cross-border payment potential. But of course, this is also going to give a boost to the Stellar network. So for example, with an increase in adoption and transaction volume. And then of course, we have to talk about Protocol 23. As recently as the 14th of August, Stellar saw the Protocol 23 upgrade, which introduces a whole bunch of things, including faster and cheaper smart contracts, probably most importantly. But it also improves network scalability. And then in turn, Stellar expects to, of course, attract more projects and developers to its network. This should result in, it's fair to reason, more demand for Lumen or XLM. Stellar's DeFi ecosystem is also growing very nicely. This growth resulted in a recent new TVL, that's total value locked, all-time high of $152 million. We're down slightly from that, but that's the new high watermark. Compared to July, actually, which is not that long ago. Now, just about a month ago, we're talking about an 80% increase. And so we have another great project here. I'm going to be allocating another $284 to this project in my portfolio. That's 15% of the budget that we're working with. All right, and finally, last but not least here, probably my favorite, or at least tied with the first entry on this list, we got to include Chainlink and the Link token, LINK. You can find Chainlink's infrastructure in pretty much, as far as its involvement, embedded in pretty much every other crypto project, or at least every other crypto sector. ICE, that's the Intercontinental Exchange, ICE, is the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange. This allows Chainlink to bring real-time Forex and precious metals pricing data on-chain. And at the latest, by 2030, the RWA market is expected to reach $30 trillion in market cap. Chainlink sits really at the forefront of all of this activity and all of this development. And its involvement here as a project really does cement Chainlink's role for bridging that gap, very importantly, between TradFi, traditional finance, and DeFi, decentralized finance. And then there's the big news of the Chainlink Reserve Token Buyback Initiative. This was far and away Chainlink's biggest news in August. The Reserve is a LINK, so that's LINK, buyback program. And in terms of the mechanisms here, it locks LINK up for a few years, reducing the supply. It's not a burn program, but mechanically it kind of leads to the sort of results that you'd be familiar with in terms of a burn program. And then, of course, with increasing LINK demand and increased scarcity, the price of LINK should go higher. And who's to say how high it's going to go exactly, but there is talk of $100. That would represent about a doubling of its previous all-time high. With Chainlink, we have to talk about total value secured, or TVS. That's value secured by DeFi projects that are looked after by Chainlink's oracles. This TVS figure is closing in on $100 billion. And so with the token LINK that's doing pretty well, we're putting our last 10% of that $1,895 budget into LINK. Maybe you're going to want to go a little bit higher than that. I think I probably would, but I'm trying to temper my bias a little bit here, if I'm going to be honest. So 10% or about $189 goes into LINK here. Again, maybe your allocations are going to be a little bit different, but right now probably is a pretty good time to start dollar cost averaging, DCAing into these coins or whatever your favorite coin may be. And here's the reasoning. If rate cuts do happen on September 17th, well, then the next FOMC meeting, that's when it's going to happen. These five, in my opinion, are going to do very, very well. If you have another project that you're a big fan of, consider that one as well in the context of that September 17th date. I continue to contend that we're not in a bear market that's going to, be beneficial to every project out there. It's not that kind of tide that's going to raise all ships because there are just too many ships out there right now. But these are projects that represent many of the better altcoins in the space. And certainly, in my opinion, these are going to benefit.